Ladies and gentlemen, One Piece chapter 1126 is out. As always, the One Piece transition chapters in between arcs consistently are the best chapters with the most information to talk about, so we do have a lot to go over today, so let's just jump right into it. Now, excuse the bad camera quality because I am back at home from school and my good webcam is at college, but regardless, we start off this chapter with the celebration on the Elbaf boat heading to Elbaf, which is, no different from the previous chapters, but the only really thing I want to draw attention to with this start of the chapter is the abyssintine green fairy drink. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but a lot of people miss the fact that they literally say in the chapter that it'll make you hallucinate if you drink too much of it, because it is a very strong, giant Elbaf alcohol, which is going to be really important for later in the chapter, so just remember that for now, because I think that's a detail a lot of people skipped over. Now, before we get to the good stuff as well, I want to bring out the hater in me. I really don't understand the decision to keep Kuma alive after Egghead Island. It seemed like all signs were pointing to some kind of sacrifice or some kind of death for him after his character arc completed with Bonnie and he saved her and they met and Bonnie found Nika. It was all this happy moment. I'm not going to complain that he's alive, right? I like seeing the characters happy, but to me, it feels like it would have been way better for Bonnie's character and just for the overall stakes of Egghead for him to not make it out alive. Also for the motivations of the Revolutionary Army, who then have more incentive to kind of get revenge for their fallen comrade. And just a whole plethora of things. I really don't understand the writing decision to keep him alive. I don't know what relevance Kuma's going to have in the story in the future. If he's somehow going to maintain his consciousness. The only thing that I could really see is his Buccaneer lineage, right? We need a Buccaneer character to as a vessel for Oda to explain why their lineage is so important and what their special attributes are that Vegapunk mentioned. But for me personally, I just thought that was going to be Blackbeard, so I really don't see why Kuma is still in the story, but that's really the only bad thing I had to say about this chapter, so we'll just breeze past that for now. Now we get to Bartolomeo and Shanks interacting because we know Bartolomeo burned down his flag at one of his territories. We were waiting for this to happen, and there's so many implications from this encounter that I want to kind of just go through each of them one-on-one. The first is the timeline here. I'm unsure if this is happening while the Straw Hats are sailing to Egghead, or this happened when the incident happened a month ago, like the narrative says. The reason that's important is because if it's happening now, then Shanks is not on Elbaf, and the person that we saw, the silhouette at the edge of the shore of Elbaf that was waiting for the Straw Hats, is not Shanks like most of us thought it was. So that's pretty interesting, right? We know Shanks left Elbaf because when he beat Kid, he said they were about to set sail to go somewhere, which was obviously here to meet Bartolomeo. I don't really know how the timeline is structured, but this could very well mean Shanks is not at Elbaf and he could perhaps be returning to Elbaf in the middle of the Elbaf arc, or he just won't be there at all and the character we were waiting for, who is the silhouette at Elbaf, is not Shanks. So that's the first interesting thing from this encounter. The second is that I really think this finally puts to rest the evil Shanks theory. Yeah, I mean, they blow up his boat, but it was very clear to me that he wanted to just test the loyalty of Luffy's Grand Fleet to see, how Luffy is growing, if he is garnering allies who seriously care about him, and that's exactly what Bartolomeo displayed, and you could see Shanks happy about that. I really don't think he's evil, and I think this just proved that exactly. I also love Bartolomeo's loyalty here. I mean, we know he loves Luffy. We expected this from him. It's just cool to see time and time again. I love how he just straight up swigs at poison, and is ready to give his life for his Grand Fleet's captain. I always live for moments like that. The next thing is the format in which we see that Bartolomeo's ship was sunk. We get the same old, on that day, by Gartel Island, the Barto Club pirate ship was sunk in the same structure that Kid and Law went down, which at first I thought Kid and Law going down in that same kind of paralleled way with the same panel structure, the same dialogue structure, the same words being used was just a Kid and Law thing because of how close they were as characters. But if Oda is really going to do kind of this structure for everyone that drops out of the Pirate King race, displayed obviously by the fact that he's doing that for Bartolomeo here, it makes me almost less positive that Kid and Law will return in as big of a role as we anticipated, because I thought their defeat was so unique to those two characters. If he's going to do this for everyone, maybe it was just Law and Kid dropping out of the race, and they're not going to come back as front runners for the One Piece, which I personally anticipated it to happen that way. So That's very interesting. I really didn't expect another character to get the Kid and Law treatment, and are we going to continue to get this as people drop out of the race? I don't know. But the most important thing in this interaction is something I have seen nobody talking about, and it is this one panel that is, in my opinion, the biggest and most obvious piece of foreshadowing we have gotten in like a very long time about the future of Shanks. I mean, just look at this panel. I wish I could have seen Luffy become the Pirate King, and Shanks is there in this dead, almost like reluctant acceptance type of facial expression. These two characters with this set of dialogue being placed next to each other, in my opinion, is the most obvious indicator that Shanks is going to die before Luffy becomes the Pirate King, whether it's to the hands of Blackbeard, or I know a lot of people think Garling is going to kill him. He is not going to make it. I have never been so confident, even before this chapter. Now, seeing this very, just direct display of, like, Shanks hearing Bartolomeo say this and realizing, like, he also probably knows he's not going to see Luffy become the Pirate King, right? Like, this is such an obvious display of foreshadowing by Oda, and I really, really, really think that, like, I can't believe so many people are missing this. It is so obvious that, like, this is it. Like, this is, I just punched my microphone. This is literally, like, what we have been theorizing forever, and it's, like, borderline being displayed in front of us right here, that he's gonna die. He's gonna kick the bucket before Luffy achieves his dreams, and he's just not gonna get to see it. I mean, like, it's so crazy how just, like, plastered in front of us it is in this chapter. Then we jump to Beehive Island with the Blackbeard pirates, who are now kind of recovering from the GARP incident where he went to rescue Kobe, and there's quite a few things that they talk about that I think have some implications on the story as well. The first being, at least the first that I caught in my attention, was that Moria did end up escaping in that incident. We didn't see him that entire time, and we were kind of unsure if he got out or if he's still in prison there, but he did escape, which to me is not a detail that Oda would include unless it would come back further in the story. Like, why would Moria escape from the Grass of Blackbeard just to never appear again? Whether he's going to join Cross Guild maybe, or just revive a character who, like, has died previously in the story. Just him being on the loose is such a joker, such a wild card for the rest of the story. He has so many different parties he could influence or join. I think it's just very important to keep that in mind, that although he's kind of a weak character, his power has very huge story implications, so just keep that one in mind. Next is the confirmation that Garp is alive. Kuzan did not kill him. I think this is very, very important for a video that I'm going to be uploading soon. Unsure when. I'm still writing the theory, but I think Garp taking Kobe's place as Blackbeard's negotiation ship for the goals he wants to achieve within the world government is very important, because obviously he's the hero of the Navy. He's a token that the world government does not want to give away, so Blackbeard has a very, very powerful bargaining chip now to get what he wants. As for what he wants and what his grand plan is, I'm not going to go too much into it now because I'm going to have a video coming out about it, but I think GARP is going to be a very important aspect of that. And lastly, the fact that Lafitte has been watching the Celestial Dragons after their attack, or after being attacked by the revolutionaries, and Blackbeard wants to pounce on this opportunity to perhaps go to Marijois. This is also something that I'm going to be including in my theory video that comes out about Blackbeard that I had actually anticipated, which I'm kind of regretting not putting the video out even sooner, because this is something that I predicted, which would have been pretty cool. But regardless, something that is very interesting is that if he's going to Marijois, we now know that Devon has access to turn into Saturn. Now, it's unclear to me if the Gorosei are aware that Saturn is dead. I would assume they know, because they're all telepathically connected and they have a new Gorosei member, so they just should know Saturn is dead, which, whether that is bad for Blackbeard and he's going to get figured out immediately, because if Saturn's dead, how is there a Saturn here? It obviously has to be some kind of shapeshifter. Or if he's not even going to use the ability to turn into Saturn, or I guess his crew's ability to turn into Saturn, when he goes up to Marijois. Or if he's even not even talking about, like, the Celestial Dragons, or rather the Gorosei in the first place, and just, like, the civilian Celestial Dragons, is unclear to me, but I'm very intrigued as to how that whole thing is going to turn out. I really thought it was shaping up to be Saturn dies, but the rest of the Gorosei don't know, and Devon goes and takes his place without anyone knowing. But to me, it's very clear that the Gorosei should know that Saturn is dead, so I don't know how that interaction will go down anymore. And lastly, we have Nami waking up in God knows where. I didn't realize at first until some of my friends pointed it out, but this place literally looks like Legoland. If you look at the floor, there's like Lego pieces, and then after you look at the floor, everything else looks at like Lego pieces. I don't really know what's happening here, but do remember in the beginning of the chapter, I did mention that the alcohol causes hallucinations. I don't know if Nami's mind is messed up or their mind was messed up when they were steering the ship and they steered the Sunny somewhere that it's not supposed to be. I don't think this is the crew getting separated. I think this is some kind of just Oda being kind of funny to get us into Elbaf without just like a boring like, oh, we're at Elbaf, right? There has to be something that's like interesting about our arrival at the island. And it looks like Nami's in Elbaf clothing. Even her hair is braided like some of the giants I've seen. So I do think this is like the introduction to the arc. I don't think we're like skipping away from Elbaf and like getting a whole different storyline. It is interesting though. Like this is not what I expected at all from the entrance to Elbaf. Especially seeing that this is just like completely far away from where we were before. Like we're not on a boat, we're not like with the rest of the crew. It's just Nami in a building. Like I don't know how this is even possible unless it was some kind of hallucination, how she could get to like Elbaf and get inside of like what looks like a palace already without the rest of the Straw Hats. I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see. There is no break next week, which is awesome. I guess we'll get the answer immediately, and I'm excited to see what it is, and I'm excited to finally jump into Elbaf, the arc we've been waiting for like 1,000 chapters. So, until then.